myself again.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters, and apologies for the lateness of this programme. Liam would be late for his own funeral, and if he was having a funeral, he would probably get in touch with Darren Baldwin Funerals, an independent funeral director. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead, NE8 4BQ. Telephone 478-2730. Email darren@darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Website www.darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or even L&G family funeral directors, who you can ring on 0191 389 7245. I thought it was a good way to promote the sponsors.
It was really good. It's almost like I'm planning it. That's what I'm doing.
What, your funeral? Welcome back. You've had a holiday, mate, and fair play to you, mate. You've rushed back to come back and do the show, which is much appreciated on behalf of me and all NUFC Matters viewers. And as always, tonight is where I say very little and you get bombarded with questions, and over 220 people waiting to watch tonight. So clearly people hopefully anticipating some movement and being very little. But let's start, before we go to the questions from people, about Joe Willock. We got him across the line. I found the quote above and beyond rather bizarre. I found the fact that Bruce admitted that they just tried to get him on loan even more bizarre. However, we've got him. He's a permanent signing. We got him for 25 million all in. That's, obviously a smaller fee and then add-ons, etc. But it's a good bit of business for us, I think.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really difficult climate. So I think everything that Steve Bruce or whatever he says does get twisted a little bit and maybe he's taken out of context. And because of the climate that we're in, I don't think he could say anything and it wouldn't be sort of twisted in some way, shape or form. But ultimately what he was kind of saying, in my opinion, was it looked as though at the start of the summer they were only going to be able to get him in on loan. When it became apparent that Arsenal weren't interested in sending him on loan, it had to be a permanent deal. And Steve Bruce, in his own expectations from meetings that he'd had and conversations that he'd had, I suspect, didn't expect they would do a permanent deal. So I think that's what he's kind of saying, is that he was expecting to be scrabbling around and all of a sudden they've pulled 25 million out their backside and bought a player. So I think, in his opinion, they've gone above and beyond anything that he expected they would do this summer. But obviously, it seems a bit strange when he starts saying, well, we'll try to get the boy on loan and this kind of thing. It's hardly, if you pull that out of the context of what he's saying, it doesn't really look very good. It's like, really? Is that all you are doing? But I don't think that's an endorsement on the quality of the player. I don't think that's an endorsement on how much they wanted him. I think that was just the reality of what it looked like at the start of the summer, that it would have to be a loan deal or nothing. It is a £25 million deal, and it could represent really good value for money. The problem that they've got is they need more than that, and I think everybody knows that. Anybody who's seen the game at the weekend will say exactly the same. But what happened at the weekend, it shouldn't really come as a surprise to anybody. Anybody who's been to the games in pre-season would know they kind of defend for toffee. The back three looked horrific in pre-season, torn to pieces at Rotherham by a little bit of pace, a little bit of athleticism, both down the wing backs as well, who aren't the best defenders. I've said this till I'm blue in the face, that Matt Ritchie isn't a defender. He can't defend for toffee. So it doesn't surprise us when there's issues down that side. I think Jacob Murphy's been steadily improving. Sunday doesn't seem to have reflected that, defensively at least. The back three is all wrong. It is all wrong. I've spoke, anybody who sort of listens to this show regularly, will have heard me talk through the idea of a squad and the 6 players that they've got in those positions, none of which have any pace or athleticism. The problem being that Jamal Lascelles and Federico Fernandez are both central players. Then beyond that, who plays alongside them? You've got to have a little bit of movement in the system that they play. Often Kieran Clark will be pulled out and be a left back, and often Emil Kraft, the right-hand side, will have to play as a right back at times. Just the way the team balances and moves. You can't do that. Kieran Clark isn't good enough to do that. He's not mobile enough. His better days are behind him, and he can't cover the ground. Paul Dummett can do it. He's a similar age similar experience. He can do it because he's used to playing as a left back and tucking in. Kieran Clark is a centre half who has played bits of left back but isn't a full back by any means. That's why Emil Kraft gets a look in on the right-hand side. Personally, I'd like to see Fabian Schär get a chance, but his defensive discipline and positioning probably counts against him in certain ways, which Emil Kraft does have, but isn't anywhere near as good a player. But that's a real problem area. I don't think anybody's really complaining about the problem going forward. Isn't really a problem area. They look like they can score goals. They look like they can create chances. And those front two are lethal against anybody, with Almiron when he's on form, Joe Willock on the other side. Yes, John Joe Shelby is problematic. Isaac Hayden is a limited midfielder. Anybody who, again, listens to this show regularly on here will have heard me say that last season, this season. My opinion on Isaac Hayden, I think he's a fantastic professional and a good player to have in your squad. But when you're relying upon him to be a number 8 in that team, which they were, then it's problematic. I thought in the last pre-season game it was obvious he was going to go towards that team, because Sean Longstaff, being brutally honest, was absolutely dreadful in pre-season. Didn't show anything to warrant a place in that side. And ultimately, that 8th position on the right was just crying out for Sean Longstaff. That was he could have made that. If he'd been brilliant in pre-season this year, come back, fired up, looking great, he could have made.
Oh, Liam, you've gone. I'll do a quick plug on the sponsors while he sorts out his internet problems. Seems to be an issue. I had one prior to the show as well, but hopefully we'll get him back. Big shout out to skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay as you go waste collection. Also, Spider VPN. They've been with us for the last few months as well for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of your search list, and they will be the boys to trust and protecting your computer. Also, qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle. Give them a shout. Big shout out to Johnny's in the chat, and to Jab Signature, who make all of our flyers. Also giving them a shout out at the start of the show, LNG Family Funeral Directors and Darren Baldwin Funerals. First time visitor to the channel, please subscribe, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right hand corner, hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share to your social media, and drop in the comments to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're also available on your podcast providers, iTunes and Spotify. Catch us on there. And just a quick plug for a couple of events. Supermac is at the Farmhouse Kitchen in Gateshead this coming Thursday. Tickets are a tenner. Get yourself along to that. It will be a good night. Talking starts at 8. Be finished around about 10:30. And Newcastle Legends first event of the after COVID period, and it's an evening with Steve Howie, Liam O'Brien, Rule Fox, John Beresford, Supermac, Darren Peacock, John Anderson, and Kevin Scott. Host is Gibbo. Joe Allen is doing a comedy slot. Tickets are available on Voucher and on Groupon, and that is the 4th of September. This next month, less than a month to go. So get yourself along to that. And I know there'll be a few of the guys and the girls from NUFC Matters who will be at that event. So get yourself along. And I will start pushing the Christmas due once I've got those events out the way. And an email will be winging it to those people who've already bought tickets for that in due course. Liam, sorry, mate, your internet packed in there, so I just took an opportunity to promote the sponsors. So yeah, back with you. Let's get into the questions, mate. And Darren Cowan said, are the press conferences still done by Zoom? Which is, of course, the protocol during COVID, I guess. So has that not changed yet? Oh, we can still hear you, mate. You've just frozen. Yeah, we just heard you said, oh no, what's going on? Gone again. Okay. Yes was the answer to that question. Darren will let Liam sort his internet out. He's going to have to probably move rooms, as I say. He's having a few technical difficulties tonight. Tom asks the question, what's your thoughts on Matty Longstaff being allowed to leave on loan, and why did we offer him a new contract if Bruce isn't going to play? See whether Liam is back. There he is. Liam, there's a question from Tom. Can you see that? Yeah, I can see it. I'll quickly answer that. Yes is the first question.
So yeah, they are still done by Zoom. I think it's probably to do with like COVID risk and bubbles and things like that. But they're going to continue for the time being, both post match and pre match. This one, what's thoughts on Matty Longstaff? I've said this numerous times on here. I think probably they might well have to come to some kind of agreement. It feels a bit Freddie Woodman. We've been in this position before. But look, I'm just not sure that either Longstaff's medium to long-term future will probably beat Newcastle United. I just don't think it seems a fit, especially under Steve Bruce. Look, I think they're both talented lads. I think I'd love to see them play for Newcastle United, but it just doesn't seem to be working for them. And I don't think the manager's particularly a massive fan. Both only have a year left on their contract. I think we're getting to the point where it's probably new deal and loan or sale for either of them. I think it's probably coming to that point where it's going to be shipped out the door, or they're going to have to step up.
Yeah, I think it's disappointing, really, with the Longstaffs, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. Of course, lots of rumours about Rafa potentially coming back in and trying to take Sean Longstaff down there. And I think some people feel he should stay and be given a chance, but clearly not getting on with the manager still. And, it doesn't look like there's any future for the Longstaff. Stu Taylor says, disappointing result at the weekend, but to be expected with 5 against 3 in midfield. A back three that kept looking for legs to help them out. Was Bruce trying to make a point about needing a centre-half with pace, do you think, Liam?
No, I don't think any manager... No, I don't think he will at all. I don't think he was trying to... He certainly wasn't trying to throw a game. No, they need every point they can get this season. I think they'll be trying to finish as high as they possibly can. And West Ham on paper at home is one of the most winnable games Newcastle United have all season, given the recent record against West Ham. So no, I don't think that at all. But I think he's known all summer that they needed some pace and athleticism, and somebody who was decent on the ball in the back three. And the 3 that were named, none of them tick that box at all. And the players to come in, none of them really tick that box either. Certainly not pace and athleticism with being good on the ball, because they've probably only got one defender who's decent on the ball anyway in Fabian Shaw. The rest are all probably rank average really in that department, and absolutely none of them have pace. So it is. I think it was there for everyone to see who was there on Sunday. That it's the point where they do need something. They need a little boost. And I've been banging that drum all summer, saying they need that, and everyone comes back with, but they've got a good group of defenders. I know, but if you're going to play this system in the way they want to play it, you've got to have pace and athleticism, and they haven't got any of it. Yeah,
I'd agree. Dino says, any news on transfers? I see Jerome Boateng is available on free. He'd strengthen our defence for sure.
I think that must be tongue-in-cheek, is it, Dino? Surely.
Got to be. Any news at all? I mean, is there anything positive coming out of the football club, or any more rumours that have got a bit more substance than just paper talk?
No, there is. There's a lot of loan inquiries gone in. Is my understanding. A lot of loan inquiries, and I think again, this is. I'm saying, it'll be late, but what date are we on now? So 17th. Yeah, 17th of the month. Look, I think it's all going to happen. I don't think anything will probably happen before Aston Villa. I think you're probably looking at the week after when anything moves. Because it's kind of like getting to the point of where the bigger clubs in the league, the stronger clubs, will be starting to pick out their 25-man squads, and there'll be 2 or 3 that they'll want to bring in that will drop out. 2 or 3 will drop out of that squad if they bring players in. And that'll be when Newcastle United probably get the players that they want. I know that sounds really depressing. They're picking up the bits and bobs that other people don't want. But look how Joe Willock worked out. And I wouldn't say just because somebody doesn't fit at one of the top clubs in the league at the moment doesn't mean they won't fit in Newcastle United. Chances are they probably will. That's just kind of the level we're at the moment. And I think there probably are 3 or 4 defenders in and around the fringes of Chelsea, in and around the fringes. I'm not going to say Liverpool. In and around the fringes of Manchester United, who probably could improve Newcastle United's lot in that department. There's probably 2 or 3 players at Tottenham that may improve them also. So yeah, I think it's just going to have to be a wait and see. But I think everybody who watched the game on Sunday will know that back 3 in this system isn't fit for purpose. It's far from it.
No, definitely not. Tom Dixon asks, do you think Lascelles will come back in the weekend? I think there's a lot of raised eyebrows that Lascelles didn't make the starting lineup.
Well, like I said, when I think it was last week, we talked through the squad building idea that some people just don't seem to get the concept of. And it was basically talking about Kraft and Shaw being your right hand wider players, Dummett and Clark being the other side, and Lascelles and Fernandez being your central two. And it's any one of those three into the certain positions. Would I? Yeah, probably. For me, I probably would bring Lascelles back in. But anybody who again watches the show will know that I'm a big fan of Lascelles just because of his leadership. Does that mean you shift Fernandez to the right? Look, he looks far from ideal out there, but he's definitely a better defender than Emil Kraft. And I think, obviously, like anybody who watched pre-season, anybody who's seen Sunday will see, I think Kieran Clark looks a long way off where he did 12 months ago. I think his levels have dropped massively. I hope the lad comes back because he's been a good servant in Newcastle United. But at the moment, he certainly doesn't look like a starting 11 player in any Premier League side, never mind Newcastle United's.
Roger, I would like to know who you think is the strongest centre-half that we have apart from Lascelles.
Strongest centre-half? I think it would always have been Federico Fernandez. But again, I think at 32, I do think Federico Fernandez has slightly gone past it as well. Again, I hope he proves us wrong. But that was always the thing. I think there was an aging group in that back three. And it's something that the age group needed to come down. And I see a lot of people complaining about bringing young players in, etc. And the idea of when this idea was floated that there might be a 24 under the age of 24 thing. And my first answer was it's missing the point. But the average age of Newcastle's squad had to come down because particularly in the defensive areas, it's quite high. It did need to come down because they're creaking at the back. And a good group of natural defenders, which they are, is okay. But when you want to play this system where you're shifting a lot of players in that back three, depending on whether you've got the ball, without the ball, and then when other teams are breaking, etc., with our two fullbacks who naturally want to get forward, then you're asking a lot of somebody like, I think Kraft can do it, even though I don't rate him. Clark just hasn't got it anymore. He can't play that position. And I think that's something that needs to be looked at moving forward. So for me, I like Jamal Lascelles' leadership. Look, I don't think he's the most naturally gifted defender, but I do think he's a good leader. And he's been a good captain for Newcastle United over the years. And I would have him back in my team, and I would probably shift Fernandez out. Look, can Fabian Shaw not get in? Is he reliable enough to get in? He certainly hasn't got the pace and the mobility, but he's good with the ball and he'll bring it out and that kind of thing. So I'd probably make a couple of changes because for me, looking at the personnel in that back three, if you'd turned around to me and said there's a back three of Shaw, Lascelles, Fernandez, it wipes the floor with Clark, Fernandez and Kraft. It's just a better three, and none of them have particularly got pace and athleticism. So surely you'd rather play the better three than the worst three. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Tom Lynch asked a question before. I've lost it off screen now, but he was just wondering, have the club said anything about the fact that certain fans haven't received season tickets yet? Clearly, still an issue. Fans obviously had to go up and get paper tickets to get in at the weekend, but still not everyone has their season tickets.
Well, it's a rubbish situation, isn't it, really? It's quite embarrassing that the club haven't been able to sort things like that. I know it was shortish notice. You normally get a good run at these things, but still, they should have the manpower and the ability to get things out to people on time. And I would like to think people will be getting them this week. And I think it'd be a bit of a disgrace if they're not, because you pay good money for your entrance and your season ticket, and then to have to sort of mess on and get paper tickets, etc., isn't really good enough from a Premier League club that's meant to be a professional outfit. So I don't know. I've not heard anything on that front. But fingers crossed, everybody out there who has had that ridiculous situation play out in the first game won't have it when the next home game comes around.
John Kennedy wants to know why do you think that Bruce plays so many players out of position? Use a system those players can play or change it. I mean, it was a strange lineup. It has to be said. It was a strange lineup. I thought there was one or two players who I just didn't think would make it into that team, and I just don't think he started his strongest 11. I just found it a little bit bizarre that the changes seemed to be ultimately what affected the team, the changes that he made. But Obviously, a bit of bad luck as well. The penalty situation, nobody, getting first to the ball and clearing it after a good save by Woodman was never a penalty in the first place. Everybody agrees on that. Almiron hitting the bar. There's lots of, things that went against us in that game. Could easily have been 4-4, 5-5. But I think playing players out of position is a strange one. I mean, he does seem to do that when he makes alterations and changes, and he's starting line up as well. What's your view?
Well, I suppose let's look at it. Basically, you could argue that Kraft's playing out of position. You could argue that Clark doesn't suit it. You could argue Richie's playing out of position. You could argue that Murphy's playing out of position. Isaac Hayden was definitely playing out of position. Miguel Almiron's been playing out of position since the system was brought in. You could even argue that Alan St. Maximin's playing out of position, although it suits him really well, playing a little bit further forward, having a freer role than what he would playing out wide. Look, I don't get it. I think this system worked really well for them at the back end of last season. And I think the problem we've got at the moment is that they're trying to shoehorn too many people into positions at the moment that doesn't quite suit. And I think the wing back suits them. And obviously, Jacob Murphy's been a big improvement over the last 6 months at Newcastle United. And I think you couldn't play him as a right back. You couldn't play Matt Ritchie as a left back. So I think it suits those. They haven't got the back three to play. They haven't got the personnel in those positions. They arguably have got the midfielders with Willock. Look, that's a problem. If you don't play three in midfield, right, then how do you fit Joe Willock in? Arsenal got rid of Joe Willock because he can't play in a two. That's basically why they got rid of him, because they sit with the likes of Xhaka or El Neni who'll play in the holding roles, and Smith Rowe or somebody like that who they'll probably bring in, Odegaard or whoever else it may be, will play in the forward position. Joe Willock was nowhere near good enough to play in those two holding positions. So I don't think moving to a two in midfield would suit, having just spent 25 million on a guy to then go from the three in midfield. I think they should stick with the system. And I think Willock can improve them if he plays alongside the other two. Look, I'm not a massive John Joe Shelvey fan, but I'd probably stick with Shelvey over Hayden in that sort of pivot role deeper, just because of what he can bring to the team. And he can find players and stick with Almiron as well. But look, it's the back three. I think it's Willock will get about the park a bit more. Isaac Hayden isn't the most mobile at getting about the place. He'll put the odd tackle in, and he's solid enough. But could he be one of the players who drops into the three at the back? I would argue he can't be any worse than Emil Kraft on that right hand side of the back three. I think he did a decent job a couple of times there last season. Could he be somebody who's maybe not quite mobile enough in midfield, but would definitely be a mobile centre half and can do the defensive work as well as the getting about and getting across to the right hand side? Look, there's lots of decisions, but would that again be just playing somebody out of position? I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't even think he would want to play there. I think I get the impression he would play there for the team if needed, but his preferred choice is centre midfield and playing in the midfield. Yeah. So I don't think we've answered the question there. We've created more speculation, but that's just the way it is. It's about opinions. Andrew Jones says Woodman can go, just another good shot stopper. We need presence and command an area like Dubravka provides. Yeah, it was a criticism of Woodman, really, and I've seen him in the pre-season friendlies as well. He does seem rather rigid and stuck to his line, and I'm not sure whether that was nerves, whether it was because of the fact that the defence playing in front of him seemed to be all over the place at times. But what's your view on Woodman?
Look, he made a good penalty. To be honest, he made a good penalty save. He had a decent enough game. I don't really think you can blame him for much. I think Woodman's a good goalkeeper. And we're talking about a lad who's making his Premier League debut. Would you look, Dubravka? It's okay saying bring Dubravka back, but the lad's injured. I mean, we've got what we've got. It's either Woodman or Darlow when he comes back, or you play Gillespie. I mean, look, we're going to have to stick with Woodman. He's definitely probably going to get the next 3 games. So I think just stick with the lad. I think he's a decent goalkeeper. And I think this is the opportunity to shine. I think he'll do well.
Could be longer because obviously rumours about Darlow being out a lot longer than we thought. So, he could be in longer. We'll just have to wait and see. Keith says Bruce plays round pegs in square holes. Alan says, Liam, what do you think of all the empty seats on Sunday? Just think if we had an owner and a manager who cared, we could need a 70,000 seater stadium. I was amazed that there was 50,000 on Sunday. It was a big crowd, 3,000 West Ham, 50,000, over 50,000 there. Obviously, they do count people who weren't there, and me and my dad weren't there. We were walking across the zebra crossing at Abbey Road, but I'd imagine there's a few people who weren't at the game who were counted as they've got season tickets. But what did you think? What did you think of the crowd? I thought that was impressive.
I thought it was, but I think it was impressive because I think there's reasons why it was impressive. Like you said, I think there were. I don't think that was the true crowd. I think there was less there. West Ham were always going to bring a big amount on the first day. The true reflection on how many people have walked and how many people are paid off with the situation will come when there's a Tuesday nighter against an opposition who might bring 1,200 instead of 3,000. That's when you'll start to see drops in the crowd. Because I think people have walked away. I don't think there are, and there was a big clamour. I mean, a lot of people have bought on the day stuff, not on the day, but you know what I mean. They'll have got tickets in the week running up to the game, general sale, etc. That won't always be there, especially if things start to tail off a little bit. But going back to the question before about Newcastle could fill a 70,000 seater stadium. Newcastle United is ready to ignite. It has been, even though things are really difficult. It wouldn't take a lot of hope and a lot of change to bring people flooding back to St James's Park and to get those queues around the door, around the corner again, from the box office and people buying shirts and stuff. It wouldn't take a whole lot, but that just kind of isn't going to happen under Mike Ashley. Look, it did happen for a little bit under Ashley with Benitez. Benitez had that unifying effect on the fan base. But it was because he was so anti-Ashley largely, and he was such a quality politician as well as a manager, and he brought the fans really under his wing and on side. It played that situation really, really quite expertly. But it didn't take a lot. It didn't take a lot for Newcastle fans to flood back, and that's what we need. We just need a little bit of positivity, a little bit of hope. But ultimately, I think fans will flood back when Mike Ashley leaves. I think that'll be the big moment. I think the day Mike Ashley sells the football club to whoever it may be, I'm not even going to speculate to somebody positive. The day he sells the football club will be the day a lot of people do come back, because there's a lot of people that you speak to, you see on social media, reach out to you, etc., send emails, etc., that say that. They say, you know what, it's hurt me for the last, they might say 10 years, it might be 12 years, it might be 5 years, but there'll be a point in the history of Mike Ashley's time here where they've said enough is enough. And I'm not going back to that football club. And I'm not buying my son and my daughter Newcastle shirts like I used to. And I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. Those people are just waiting for that moment. And even if it's not a Saudi dawn, even if it's not like some kind of embarrassment of riches walking through the door, the day that Mike Ashley walks will be the day a lot of people start queuing up at Newcastle United again, because it'll feel like a new dawn. It'll feel like hope. It doesn't even say it has to be something with like I say, promises of embarrassment of riches. But yeah, I think 70,000. Yeah, I think Newcastle United could, if things start to go in the right direction. I think 70,000 you could sell that out no bother. And some people outside of our beautiful city and region will not understand what we're talking about when we say things like that. They'll think we're mad. But you could literally, when Newcastle United are flying and things are moving in the right direction, even just slightly, 70,000 will go like that. It will go like that. It really would.
I've seen this being put out a couple of times. Somebody sent it in last night. I've seen it on Twitter. Bruce's Newcastle side have conceded 4 goals at home for the third time inside 12 months. Before Bruce took over, we hadn't done that for 6 years. We've conceded 5 under him a few times as well. Is that a concern?
I think it's the way his teams play. I don't think for a former defender. Yeah, I think for a former defender, I think it's been mentioned by some people quite a bit. He doesn't have the best defensive record as a manager. His teams aren't the best defensively organised and best set up. He doesn't always sign the best defenders. Obviously, there's been a couple he had at Hull that'll stand out like sore thumbs. But yeah, defensively, they're not great. And they're certainly not, this team isn't set up very well defensively. And surely as a former defender, he must see how much that is a problem area. He must be able to see that those 3 at the back aren't fit for purpose. And I think that's something that they will try and address between now and the 1st of September.
Yeah, let's hope so. Needs to be done, that's for certain. Good to see Adam Armstrong score at the weekend. I think he'll be trouble for our defence, says Paul Oxley. Great goal. Absolute belter. It was a peach and he's, top corner.
But he's got that in him, hasn't he? He can score. Adam Armstrong can score all kinds of goals. Right foot, left foot, from distance. Proper striker. He's a really, really good player. And I hope he does really well. I really do. And it was quite interesting to see him score against the manager who binned him out at Newcastle United. Just didn't really fancy him. Benitez could never be convinced by Adam Armstrong in the system that he played, which is a shame. But he's proven he's gone away. He maybe needed to go to somebody like Tony Mowbray, who he trusts from earlier in his career, I think from his time at Coventry. But he went there and scored a lot of goals at Blackburn, and it's made him a better player. If Adam Armstrong had stayed at Newcastle United, I don't believe he'd be the same player that he is today. I think sometimes it takes those kind of breaks in somebody's career to go and find themselves and come back better for it. And I think Adam Armstrong, good luck to him. He's a better striker now than the day he left Newcastle United. And fingers crossed he does really well, because I want to see Geordie lads do well. But fingers crossed he doesn't score any goals against us.
Yeah, Mad Mark is just wanting to know why haven't we seen anything official regarding the third strip from the club? Do we expect them to release one this season? I mean, Castori will be playing a big part in that, I guess.
Well, I'm back at work tomorrow, so I'll ask the question, because it's not something that I'd heard or seen anything about, but it's glaringly obvious that everybody has third kits, and Newcastle United haven't released one. To my knowledge, I certainly haven't seen it in the time that I've been away. But yeah, I'll ask the question tomorrow.
Okay, Mark saying, are you surprised about Steve Bruce taking the option to go on Radio Newcastle? Of course, TalkSport, we've got Willock on Wednesday doing a live Q&A, and then Brucey's going on to do a live Q&A on Thursday.
Yeah, I've seen the Radio Newcastle thing. No, I don't think he's brave. It's something he should have done the day he walked through the door. There's been a real reluctance there to do it. I don't know which party that comes from. Is it coming from the club? Is it coming from Bruce himself? It's certainly not coming from the media outlets who've been crying out for this kind of thing for quite some time. But it's a positive thing. It's hard. And I'm not, look, anybody on here who knows I'm not a Bruce apologist at all. But the guy's the only bloke who talks at Newcastle United. He's the only person who fronts up. So all the issues that build up with regards takeover, with regards no transfers, with regards whatever it may be, lack of movement, we've got no money, season tickets, all that anger that builds up among the fan base effectively gets channeled into Steve Bruce. Doesn't help him, of course, that he's not great and isn't a great manager anyway, and Newcastle United haven't been great under his tenure. But there is a lot of other stuff that gets lumped in and I think contributes to the real toxic feeling towards Steve Bruce. And that isn't me apologising for him. I find that is just naturally the reality. Some of that heat should be taken off by the people above him. I think it's a dereliction of duty that the likes of Lee Charnley don't regularly, or at least once or twice a season, speak to fans and put out statements explaining things. Would it be so hard for Newcastle United to put a statement out at the start of this summer and say, look, it's going to be difficult? You know what I mean? Like we're a club policy, we're struggling, we haven't got a load of money, so this is whatever. Or just saying, look, this is the or even if they said, right, we're now going back to a policy where we target young players because we want to bring the average age of the squad down. Or if they just talk about things like, oh, well, Joe Willock's the person we're going for. There's nothing wrong with that kind of thing. Transparency, being clear, would take a little bit of the heat off Steve Bruce. That would then focus the anger of fans purely and simply on he's not good enough as a manager. They're not getting good enough results. He should be picking him and this, that, and the other. That's what most managers at most football clubs have. At Newcastle United, it's different because there's only one man who stands and puts his head above the parapet. And it's good to see that he's doing it, by the way. That is a positive step in the right direction. The food bank the other week, then the Radio Newcastle stuff. But this should have been continuous. It should have been.
It's a charm offence. It's a charm offensive, though, isn't it? That's what I thought. I mean, I don't believe for 1 minute he walked from his home through Newcastle to Benton the other week, and they showed him walking into training. Listen, I'm not against it. I've already gone out and said on the show over the last few days, he deserves to be just given a chance. It's not his fault the takeover hasn't gone through. It's not going to do us any good as a team if we get on Bruce's back as a support, over the next few weeks. Give him a chance this season. Let's hope we build up some momentum. Let's hope we get some points in the bag. Let's hope we stop conceding goals. But getting on Bruce's back is not going to do us any good. And but I do feel it's a charm offensively. I can see straight through it.
Well, I know that, but Rafa Benitez did exactly the same thing. The only thing is he did it the day he walked through the door.
But Rafa Benitez was loved by the supporters. Steve Bruce isn't.
Well, that's the thing. Steve Bruce should have done this from the start. I think it's a football club where you've got to be a part of more than just being the manager. If you're manager in Newcastle United, you've got to get amongst the people. You've got to speak to them. Why didn't he do some kind of, talking or something, where people got to see who was Steve Bruce, not just this man who nobody wants walking through the door. He could have built some bridges and got himself some money in the bank early doors with this charm offensive. Now, being brutally honest, it looks like it's too late. All that water under the bridge doesn't just go away. He could have done this earlier on. People could have got to see Steve Bruce. They could have got to hear what he's like, because actually, when you speak to him, he's got his faults, of course, but he's quite personable. He is not a bad bloke when you speak to him. But nobody's ever got to see that. It's only ever been a name and a face. And it's only ever been the post-match stuff where he's been spiky or he's been peed off or he's not the most eloquent. So it's come across as barbed comments. And then that's me making too many excuses. Sometimes he has made barbed comments towards fans. He has. There's no doubt about that. And then they've tried to cover their tracks as the days have gone on. For example, that Talk Sport interview on the Monday after they went and won at Leicester, where he came out with the ludicrous stuff and just wound fans up again when it was a positive time. I think he's got that in him. I think it sounds like that's kind of what he does sometimes. I think he likes to be the person to say, well, I told you so and I was right all along. That's not really something that is ever going to wash well with fans. But it is a charm offensive. You're absolutely correct. But it's something that every manager does. Most do it. And he hasn't done enough of it. And it does feel a little bit late. But still, it's good. It's actually positive. He should have done it a long time ago. What he's going to get out of it at this stage, do the club think suddenly fans are going to turn warm to him because he does it? I think too much water's gone under the bridge. I think people didn't want him in the first place, but if he'd come across as a man and as a person positively with fans in social clubs, in pubs, on the radio, on TV, however they might have done it, then it could have made a difference and people might have seen him for what he is. But no, he's not. It is a charm offensive. But like I say, Rafa Benitez was pictured at the Angel in the North doing all this kind of thing. And I love Rafa, but that was also a charm offensive. But that was the perfect way to do it. It was almost like showing that he was an outsider, but he was part of you, part of what you are, part of your club and your city. Steve Bruce was already a part of that from where he was born, but made no effort to then build on that at all. And that just didn't wash well with fans, and rightly so. Okay,
has Lascelles fell out with Bruce, do you think?
It's not one I've heard, but I don't know, possibly. I think, like I said, I think the selection thing is more to do with the fact it's about this idea of the squad. Lascelles isn't a right-hand side defender in a 3, nor is he a left, nor is Fernandez. So I think Steve Bruce has purely picked the best natural centre-half in Fernandez ahead of Lascelles. I think that's what's happened. Could they rejig it? Like I said earlier, I think ultimately the back three that was put out the other day wasn't fit for purpose. I can see the idea of mobility on the left and right, but Kieran Clark was very poor, and I would rather have better players playing. And none of them have particularly got mobility, but I'd rather have a 3 of Lascelles, Fernandez, and Shaw playing than have Kieran Clark and Emil Kraft, who aren't as good as any of those 3 previously mentioned.
Nathan says, it's going to be a long season when we're using the words, he can't be worse than over and over again. You're not wrong, Nathan. Look at all the players we've extended contracts to. There is at least a full squad's worth, maybe more. None of them get used. I can only say it's because Mike is not willing to allow anyone go on a free, which is probably quite true.
I think, I'll make a little point on that and I'll try and be cute with it. But there are people, not this summer, think a little bit further back. There are 2 senior players who were given contracts, which Steve Bruce didn't push for to get contracts. He's not taking responsibility for. And that is about protecting assets. So I think you can look at what happened with the likes of Dwight Gale and stuff this summer, that it was about protecting assets, not necessarily about protecting the strength of the squad, because we all know that Dwight Gale probably should have been upgraded on this summer.
Andrew Jones is the same. What is the situation with Gale? He's a pointless player for us in reality. Why not sell him to a championship club? Surely he holds value. Then invest in a young up-and-coming player.
I've said that time and time again about Dwight Gale. It made sense to let him go this summer. But the only caveat with that was always going to be that would he have signed a new contract and then suddenly be shipped out the door straight away? I don't think he would have signed a new contract on that idea, because him as a player and a person would have been better off just walking away for a free. He would have got a better deal anyway. And there would have been clubs queuing around the corner for him. And he would have got more money because nobody would have to pay a fee. I just don't think he's somebody who would want to leave. Will it happen? It doesn't sound like it, but it would definitely be one that I would be looking to do, is get him out the door and see if they can improve in that department. Because I don't think Dwight Gale's neither use nor ornament in this squad. Last season he wasn't, and he isn't this time round. I mean, is he going to get used? Is it going to be one that he'll just turn up in the League Cup and things like that? Well, we had that with Andy Carroll last season. Ultimately, you need a 25-man squad where every single player on that squad is going to add something different to your team. And at the moment, Newcastle United feel like they've got a full squad, but it feels like there's too many passengers. I've mentioned two in the back of the defenders. You look at Crafts, probably a passenger and just fill in a slot. Players like Mankio, players like Kieran Clark. There's just Jeff Hendrick, Dwight Gale, far too many passengers in this squad. Who is Sean Longstaff in that category? Possibly. Matty Longstaff, definitely. I mean, these players doesn't reflect necessarily on their ability, but are they adding any value to this squad moving forward? Are they the type of players who will come in and definitely add something different to the team or do a good job if needed? Question marks are out there.
Plenty question marks, Liam, about a lot of things. Another question mark at the end of this question from Blue Moon Boy says, Liam, where do you think we'll finish in the league?
I think correct us if I'm wrong, Steve. Did I predict 14th last?
I think you said something like that. Yeah, I couldn't remember. Yeah. I think it was about that. I said anywhere between 12th and 17th. I think we've had a couple of shouts of 10th, but I can't see that. I think between 12th and 17th. We've just got to hit it lucky with injuries and suspensions. I think there's worse teams in the league. Again, I think there's three worse teams, but we have to beat these teams in the 6 pointers. And 6 pointers. There's plenty of them. We'll just have to wait and see. He also says Ashley needs to go, but I'd be devastated if we end up with owners like Arsenal's. They're a calamitous, in my opinion. Yeah, again, it's be careful what you wish for, isn't it? And there are some rather unscrupulous owners who could easily come in and take the club over.
They could, but again, this is one thing that it might be absolute financial and business naivety on my behalf, and I don't really care. It probably is, but if somebody said to me, you can roll the dice tomorrow and have any owner but Mike Ashley, I would roll that dice and I wouldn't regret it. I wouldn't regret rolling that dice, because this, with him as the owner, is terrible. It's rubbish. Why would you choose for that to continue? I would take a risk on anybody.
Yeah, John Askew is backing up what we're saying, really. He says, can we assume Ashley's successor as an owner will definitely move the club forward? Careful what you wish for. Remember the Wengies at Wigan and Birmingham. I do. You've got to be careful what you wish for, because, I mean, ultimately, I've said I don't personally feel we can judge Mike Ashley until he leaves the club. I've had plenty to say against him. I'm not happy with the way that he's run the club, but we can only judge him when he leaves and what state he leaves the club in, and ultimately who he sells the club to. Now, he's tried to sell it to the Saudis and he's failed, and he's just on a compensation hunt now, I think. But we could end up with some horrendous owners, and that could of course be worse than that. It could be worse than Ashley. You could, of course, but you could end up with better. And has it really been? Why is it always got to be the negative? We could end up with somebody better. That's the thing I would always look at. And for every single one of those names mentioned there, Wigan, Birmingham, Portsmouth, all terrible, terrible owners, all won trophies before Newcastle, since Newcastle United have. Good point.
All of them have won. Even Venky's, Blackburn have won trophies since Newcastle United have.
Won the league.
We've had nothing. Won the League Cup under Souness as well. They've won more than Newcastle United. All of those teams mentioned, even Wigan. And how embarrassing is that?
Mm-hmm. Life Goals says Benitez harmed the long-term prospects by dumping in Bemba, Tony and Babu and Armstrong for the good work he did. Other than Sean Longstaff, He stunk with the youth side.
It's probably a fair point. There are reasons why he got rid of certain ones. I know Mbemba in particular was one that
wouldn't speak English, would he?
He couldn't communicate properly with Mbemba. He talked through certain games where he had issues where he told him to be in certain positions and at set pieces or when the play breaks down, and he was just wandering off into different areas. And I think Benitez just couldn't get through to Mbemba. Doesn't mean he was a bad player, but couldn't communicate the way he wanted him to play to Mbemba. And Mbemba did make a massive effort to learn the language as well. So there was a massive barrier there. I think Mbabu, I think it was injuries at the time. I think he kept coming into the side, and he was probably a young lad still growing into himself, and just couldn't really break the injuries. Armstrong, I don't know why, he just never fancied Armstrong in the system that he played. I can't remember anybody else that was mentioned there, but yeah, it's probably Tony. That looks like a ridiculous thing as well, really. I mean, you look at somebody like. Look at the way Tottenham managed Harry Kane, for example. That's not suggesting that either of those centre forwards who've gone on are anywhere near that good. They're not. Probably won't be. But there's a clear plan in place. They'll send them on 3 or 4 loans with the idea that might take them till 21, 22 to be ready to sort of make an impact in the Premier League. Where's the planning for young players? Where's the long-term, short-term, medium-term plans in place? Hopefully that's something that'll change. With the likes of Steve Harper coming into the setup, and I know it's something that they're trying to change, but where's the long, medium-term planning for these players? We've seen it with Freddie Woodman. He's basically in the team now, thrown in at the deep end by accident. There hasn't been any long-term plan to get him into Newcastle United's side. You sign these players with the idea that there should be a pathway to the first team. And you should be able to sit them down every summer and say, right, this is where you're going to go. And I'm going to send you to this club because you'll improve in this way and you'll do that. When you come back, you should have done X, Y, and Z. And you'll be back here. And if you've done that, you're a step further and you're closer to the first team. Where's this pathway to the first team for these young players? And that's why I talked about Armstrong and I talked about Tony and the same idea as well. That they had to leave. They had to go somewhere else to become better players. And that's a sad fact at Newcastle United. Look, there'll be players like that everywhere. There'll be players like that at other clubs as well, with normally tends to be sort of better clubs with 3 or 4 internationals will be ahead of somebody in the pathway to getting towards a team. But that's not the case at Newcastle United. It's just poor management.
Yeah, okay. Do other clubs communicate? Good question. With fans like that, he thinks it's a general fault of football clubs, non-communication. Would you say that's right?
I think the Aston Villa one was a fresh air, was a breath of fresh air this summer after the Grealish thing. I think it's something that a lot of clubs can learn from. No, clubs don't always communicate on every cough and splutter that happens at the football club, but they certainly communicate a lot more than Newcastle United do. Like I say, Lee Charnley effectively at this football club has been like a ghost director. We've not seen, heard, or anything from him, have we, in the last 2 to 3 years? He did his bit fans forum, etc., whatever it may be, fan meetings behind closed doors. He did that probably 2 years ago, would have been the last one. But where's the next one? When's it happening? Who's he gonna? Is he gonna show any balls and come out and speak and take some of the heat off his manager? It wouldn't be a hard thing to do, would it? To come out and, he could do something pre-prepared. He could do something like Mike Ashley did, where he picks his certain media partners. But he could do something to take the heat off his manager when things have been bad. They haven't done that because it's been so easy. The easy option is to leave Steve Bruce out there hanging and leave him out there, leave him to the wolves. And that's all they've done in that time. But I think the politics and things like that of Benitez before them has really scarred things. I think they're a scared football club to stand out and put their head above the parapet. And they're just starting to do that with Bruce now. It's taken them a little bit of time, but they need to show some balls. And they need to come out and explain certain things. Nobody needs to know every financial detail. Nobody needs to know, lots of the detail. But there's ways and means you can communicate, and the way Newcastle United do it isn't right.
Why didn't the club get Willock registered on time, says Tim Cairns. Story regarding the club doing his video and overlooked the registration. Surely that's not true. It's just it's the way that Lee Charnley tends to do everything, very slowly. He's a bit like a chief executive sloth.
Yeah, I've never heard that one, to be honest. I think
He
anybody...
does do things slowly. I know that for
No,
definite.
I mean, I'm talking about this, Steve. Of course he does. He does things slowly. I'm saying this video, doing the video, I just think that's a load of rubbish, to be honest.
Yeah, I get the impression that it's just he does things slowly in his own time, and I get it was well publicised, well documented that it was down to personal terms, and they're just clearly, like we've described on this show before. Lee Charnley is here, then you've got Justin Barnes, then you've got Mike Ashley, and things have to go through a chain of command to get a yes. And you can imagine the yes can probably take, or the no, as it probably often is, can take a bit of a while to come back down the chain. I guess that's why things are done so slowly. And Lee Charnley gets it in the neck, but ultimately it comes it comes from the big owner who is clearly going to make the final decision. And then he has to tell Justin Barnes, who clearly then passes the message on to Lee Charnley.
Look, I'm saying that, and I'm throwing Lee Charnley at the Wolves here, saying he should be the one stand up, but ultimately that's his job. He's in that position. And there should be others able to take the flak a little bit, but the people above aren't interested in that. They've never been interested in that, and I think that's just ultimately the way the football club is really poorly run in that sense. Yes, the balance books will be great; they're always great, but is that what football's about? Is that really what we want? We've joked over the years for so many times when people say, and it'll be the same people now are saying, careful what you wish for. They'll joke, they'll say like, oh, well, look, we're top of the, the financials, we're top of the balance book league table. But what about the football club? It's football. I want to win football matches, want to sign football players, want football players to score goals. I'm not really that interested in the exact of the financial detail. You don't want anybody to run your football club into the ground, of course. But you might get somebody who does it a bit better than Mike Ashley, even though they might not seem on paper, because to me, it can't really be that much worse. It can, of course, be financially worse. But in terms of draining such a passionate fan base, it's taken some time to really drain this fan base. But it feels like it absolutely is drained now over the last couple of years. But it's taken some time, hasn't it, to get to this point.
The rumours are flying around. I mean, I'm sure some of this has come from some of the in the knows. They submitted the paperwork as Joe instead of Joseph. Again, I think that's just a rumour, Mark. None of this has been confirmed. It was personal. It was down to personal details, personal terms with a father. I think it's been well publicised, and this is what dragged on.
It's so look, Steve. You know it yourself. It's so easy to start. People start things. You see it all the time on social media. They start something, it grows arms and legs. And because everybody wants to blame the football club, they'll take it on and it becomes fact. And these things that you're hearing now, there'll be ones, might be 10 years' time in the pub, somebody somewhere in some random pub will go, they'll be talking about football transfers and they'll be like, I remember the time when Joe Willock didn't get through because they put the wrong name on the form. It'll be fact. It'll turn into fact somewhere down the line. And half the time, these things just aren't true.
Yeah. Lots of comments about the takeover, Premier League, etc. Premier League would brown their pints if Newcastle fans and journos expect the takeover to go through. Premier League want to control the narrative, get Newcastle used to a ship sandwich so they can have easy land. And I think, well, look, there's a lot of people commenting about this, and people asking, do I know more? Thomas Wilson asking, do I know more than I let on? The takeover is dead for me, Thomas. I've told everybody on the show a couple of weeks ago. For me, it's dead. I can't see anything happening. Stu says, I see Richard Masters and EPL broke their silence this week. Masters just repeated what he'd said 16 months ago. It's pathetic from the Premier League. And yeah, that's all we're going to get. And I mean, like I keep saying to people, just forget it until the 29th of September when we get some kind of, answer as to what's going to happen with the CAC case. That's my honest opinion.
Yeah, and the advice that we've been given, the thing you hear from sources is that the 29th might not even bring that much. It might bring an answer, but you could also then see appeals and that could become stuck in the mud quite quickly. Look, it doesn't look good on that front. We've both said that. You think it's absolutely dead. It isn't dead until it is dead, in my opinion, but it doesn't look great.
No, Bruce is going to clash with fans on the radio and he's going to react very badly to what fans say. It's going to be hilarious. It's a terrible idea PR-wise. Radio Newcastle won't allow that. I guarantee it. That won't. If that happens, be very surprising. And these radio stations have 7-second delays as well. So I genuinely can't see that happening. Might be proved wrong. Who knows? Tony Bull says, Steve, I've got the same haircut as you. Great. Do you think there's more chance of our hair regrowing than a takeover going ahead? Yes, definitely. Yano says, Willock has a chance to break a record. I'm glad he wasn't signed in time. We need him to be properly prepared. Mark Taylor says, we're in a state of suspended animation. Good. I like that. It's like Star Wars Blake 7 type of thing. Because Ashley won't spend while he waits for his money. Relegation is a real fear. I would agree. Steve, you believe the takeover was digging through last year or so? Yes, Darren, but things can change, and I definitely feel as if the takeover is over because of what I've heard and because of these two things getting pushed back. Arbitration pushed back to next year, and now the CAC case, only a hearing happening in September, not the actual CAC case. That's why my attitude's changed. It's a personal feeling. I'm not going to come on here as a presenter of a podcast and lead Newcastle fans up a garden path and pretend to say something that I don't feel. That's simple question. Thomas, you didn't come across nasty, son. Don't worry. It helps to think of the club as a branch of Sports Direct. I never usually mention that name on here. Will you stream the radio call in from Bruce? Dino, no. We'll be doing our own show with Malcolm MacDonald, and then me and Malcolm are going out to do a talking. Tom says, what did Keegan do when he wanted to sign someone in the day? Either sign him on the day or the player can go and find another club and not time wasting. It's a different club now than it was back then. Who would you bring into the team for Aston Villa, Liam?
Like I said earlier, I would probably look to bring Lascelles in somehow. And Shaw, I don't think either of them particularly fit the system great, but I'm just not convinced by the personnel in the back three. Beyond that, I would probably say Joe Willock comes into the side without any shadow of a doubt, and I'd probably bring him in for Isaac Hayden. I'm possibly bringing Jamal Lewis in at left back as well.
Yeah, a lot of people suggesting that Lascelles, Willock and Lewis in for Rafa Benitez, which, I think a lot of people would agree Lascelles needs to come back in, apart from Martin from Loaded. I know he's not a Lascelles fan, not my captain and all that, but don't forget Loaded tonight has got Keith Patterson on, so give the lads a shout, and a big thank you to Daz and the lads for doing Matchday Live for me at the weekend. Great to have the lads back on, and it was great to see the 5-minute rant back on last night as well, and great to see so many people phoning in, coming in, doing the bit on the show. So thanks to Pete and Chris for running that. We'll take one more question, and that is from Richard Boyd. Did you see the £165 hoodie in the club shop? Yes. Liam, you're not modelling it there tonight, are you?
No. Bit out of my price range, that one. Especially now with kids in the mix. I might have one once upon a time, but not now. No, at the end of the day, look, I think they are Castori. If you ever look at what the kind of level of sportswear the Castori sell, it is in that kind of price category.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't get too head up about the idea that they're going to be selling the odd premium piece of sporting wear in the Newcastle shop, because it's kind of targeted at people who like premium sportswear. It just so happens that they're branching out into making sporting kit as well, which is why Newcastle United's kit is made by Wolves as well. But I wouldn't get your knickers in a twist, to be honest, about the idea that Castori are now selling premium sportswear when that's what they've built their whole business model on.
Yeah, I was flowing over, says John. I hope you're doing well, mate. Good to hear you on the mend. I know you've had a couple of bad days. It's beautiful, says Joe. Darren Ague will give you the last on-screen comment. Woodman, Lewis, Lascelles, Fernandez, Kraft, Shelby, Hayden, Maximin, Willock, Murphy, Wilson. 4-2-3-1. You've got Kraft in there. A lot of people wouldn't have Kraft in there. But all about debate. Don't forget, tomorrow night is Retro Night, Thursday night, Gibbo and Supermac, and then Friday night is the Fab Four. I'm having a well-deserved break next week, but the good news is Monday night we'll still have the 5-minute rant, which will be live with Pete and Chris and Holly. So there'll be the three of them on for an hour and a half, 90 minutes to look back over the weekend's events. And Tuesday night, Liam, because of the transfer situation, or lack of transfers, Liam will be doing this show next Tuesday with Daz from Loaded Mag. Don't forget to jump over to Loaded Mag now. 7 o'clock, Keith Patterson's on there tonight. Liam, last chance to promote where you are writing at the moment.
So at the moment, I'm no longer writing for the Shields Gazette. I've seen some nutters out there, and that's what I'm going to describe them as. I haven't been getting a massive amount of connection with regards to the internet, but I've seen some nutters out there saying, "Oh, he's been sacked from the Gazette." I could write for the Gazette tomorrow if I wanted to. We're still part of the same company, but now I'm no longer writing under the Gazette arm. I'm now writing for a brand new venture, which launches the website on Thursday. It's called Newcastle World. So make sure you guys out there check it out. It's a brand new thing. We're starting from scratch. It's involved a JPI media production that's going to be seeing our websites: a Manchester World, a Liverpool World, London World, Glasgow, Wales. We're going all over the country and starting out these brand new websites. So I'll be heading up the Newcastle United coverage on that brand new venture from Thursday. Been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. It's part of a National World JPI production. So yeah, check it out. Big launch Thursday. I'll see you guys there.
Great stuff. And Blue Moon Boys asking, am I streaming the Supermac Talking? We'll give it a go. Hopefully the internet will be good down there and we will be able to do it. So I will make an announcement in due course once we know. It'll be very much a case of turning up, hoping for the best. And if we can, we can. If we can't, we can't. And you'll be able to see it. Great stuff, Liam, as always. Thanks very much for coming on. Enjoy next Tuesday with Daz. I'm sure he will look after you. Take care, mate. Good night.
See you.